If you live in a ballot initiative state, this is where I think you really do need to show up to the polls, because the reality is this is going to affect you directly in your state. A lot of times people just don't show up, and then these laws are passed and they're like, when did this happen? You know what I mean? So show up for this. Ballot measures. This is direct democracy. These are things that I get excited about, because this is you voting for what type of law you want in your state. So we are now starting the 2024 ballot measures. These initiatives will be on the ballot this November. And we're starting with the state of Alaska, the UBI state, I like to call it. This is how it works in Alaska, fam. Citizens of Alaska, they can initiate legislation through the process of indirect initiative, meaning successful petitions are first presented to the state legislator. If the measure is not adopted, the law is then placed before the voters. In Alaska, citizens also have the power to repeal legislation. They can do this via veto referendum. Alaska residents cannot amend their state constitution via initiative or directly initiate legislation. The Alaska state legislator may also place measures on the ballot as legislatively referred constitutional amendments or legislatively referred state statutes. There is a single subject rule in Alaska. What does that mean? It means that for a ballot measure, it can only cover one subject. That means you can't have two subjects as one ballot measure. A lot of the states are like that, by the way. You'll see that as we get to the other ones. There are some restrictions. It says here, petitioners in Alaska may not propose legislation on certain subjects. Initiated laws may not dedicate revenues, make or repeal appropriations, create courts, define the jurisdiction of courts or prescribe their rules, enact local or special legislation. There are a number of signatures required to qualify for state statutes or veto referendums for the ballot. And it says here that for both initiatives and referendums, signatures equal to 10% of these votes are required to put the proposal before the voters. So I'm not going to go into all of that because it can become kind of cumbersome. But this one is very important if you live in Alaska. This will be on the ballot this year. Alaska minimum wage increase and paid sick leave initiative. You know what? I may have to move to Alaska because Alaska has a UBI, universal basic income. From what I've heard from people, the pay is really well in Alaska. I don't know. But now Alaska is trying to put forth a measure to increase the minimum wage and paid sick leave as well. Let's get into this. This sounds exciting. If you vote yes for this in November, this supports increasing the minimum wage to $15 per hour by July 1st, 2027. Obviously, I think it should be more than that at this point, ladies and gentlemen. Hell, Massachusetts passed this years ago. Okay. Providing employees the ability to accrue up to 56 hours of paid sick leave per year if their employers have 15 employees or more. It provides employees the ability to accrue up to 40 hours of paid sick leave if their employers have under 15 employees. And it prohibits employers taking adverse action against employees who refuse to attend employer-sponsored meetings regarding religious or political matters. A big clap, fam. Can they make this? Can they pass this? Can they pass this? Because I never agreed with employees having to attend, any type of like these employer-sponsored meetings that are religious or political. I don't agree with that. Keep politics and religion out of the workplace. Y'all don't think you should be mixing all of that together. So can they pass this in Alaska? So if you're in Alaska, this is a big one for you. This November, Alaska minimum wage increase and paid sick leave initiative. I like that. Again, I think the minimum wage should be higher. You know that 15 isn't going to happen automatically. That $15 will be in 2027. I hear you, Otto. Otto says it should be $25 minimum. Yeah, and I think Professor Wolf said it should be even higher than that if we're going to adjust for inflation, right? It goes on to say here, I just want to highlight this as well. How many minimum wage ballot measures have been approved in the U.S.? From 1996 to 2022, 28 minimum wage increase measures on the ballot. Voters approved 26 and rejected 2. The last 2 states to approve minimum wage measures were Nebraska and Nevada in November 2022. And I covered that. And guess who rejected it? It was Missouri and Montana. So it was defeated in Missouri and Montana, but the last 2 states that just passed it was Nebraska and Nevada. And this is important because people have to understand, Alaska is a red state, Nebraska is a red state. But if you follow the ballot measures, you'll see that even some of the red states are passing progressive laws. The voters are choosing to pass progressive laws, right? So this is why I think direct democracy is even more important. And I wish every state were a ballot initiative state, because just imagine if that would be something to look forward to. If you don't want to vote for the president, or you don't want to vote for even the Congress members or whatever, that means that if every state were a ballot state, you would show up to at least support those ballot measures, because again, that's direct democracy. So what it'll look like on the ballot is question 1, question 2, question 3, like that type of thing. We have that here in Massachusetts. And I also think if every state were a ballot initiative state, that would increase voter turnout. Just saying. Just something to think about, folks. And so it shows you how this would increase over time. $13 per hour would be July 2025, $14 2026, and $15 by 2027. And after this, the minimum wage would be adjusted annually for inflation. The adjustment would be calculated each September 30th by the Alaska Department of Labor and Workforce Development for the preceding calendar year. And by using the 100% rate of inflation based on the Consumer Price Index for all urban consumers for the Anchorage metropolitan area and compiled by the Bureau of Labor Statistics and United States Department of Labor, the adjusted minimum wage would be rounded up to the nearest 10 cents. The adjusted minimum hourly wage would apply to work performed the next calendar year when it will be effective. Tips and gratuities, this is important to note. It can't be applied towards the payment of minimum wage. You guys know about this, right? Like you can't, because you get tips and all that, right? So it would also provide employees with the ability to accrue a certain amount of sick leave based on how many employees their employer has. So we went through all of that. So yeah, that's a big one coming to Alaska this November. So far, the Alaska AFL-CIO union supports this, and so does the 1630 Fund. I think this is a good one. Who opposes this? Oh, Greg Sarber, board member of Alaska Gold Communications. California passed a similar new minimum wage law that went into effect of April this year. However, as brief updates, since California's new minimum wage has gone into effect, over 10,000 low-wage workers have been fired from their jobs because their employers could not afford to pay the new higher wage or found cheaper alternatives like automation to replace the workers. Instead of helping employees, the new law put them out of work and into the unemployment line. That sounds like a capitalism problem to me. Sounds like a capitalism problem, because if all these CEOs weren't trying to exploit the workers and weren't trying to take most of the wealth and give the workers under them so few, sounds like you wouldn't end up with that issue. That's what it sounds like to me. It's 2024. You mean to tell me you can't pay people $15 an hour? Sounds like a capitalism problem. Everybody should have a living wage in this country. That's my take, folks. Now, pay attention to this, guys. So far, there's over $822,000 that is collected to support this measure. Usually, this goes the way of cash. So usually, whichever one has the most money, whether it's support or oppose, that's usually the way it ends up going, because there's going to be a bunch of negative ads. For those of you in Alaska, there's going to be a lot of negative ads about this. And I just read you one of the arguments that oppose it, right? Which is, no, people are going to be laid off, just like in California. So if you have more money to spend to oppose it, you're going to see a lot of attack ads against it. But right now, it seems like most of the money, or all of the money so far, is to support the measure, not to oppose it. So this could actually pass, ladies and gentlemen. Again, that is Alaska. Let me go up here. That's Alaska, ladies and gentlemen. This will be on the ballot this year. And that is minimum wage increase and paid sick leave initiative. So if you are up there, you are probably looking forward to this one. So the last one for Alaska is to repeal top 4 ranked choice voting initiative. See, these things are important. A yes vote supports eliminating the open top 4 primaries and ranked choice voting general elections in Alaska and establishing a party primary system. So it says the initiative would return Alaska to partisan primaries and general elections in which the candidate who receives the highest number of votes wins the election, known as plurality voting or first past the post. The candidate need not win an outright majority to be elected. This is the most common voting system used in the United States. So that's pretty cool. One of the arguments was that we stand for Alaskans who felt misled, for those who found RCV ballot confusing, and for everyone who believes in the sanctity to the straightforward voting process. So who opposes this? The 1630 Fund and Unite America. And one of those arguments is, I believe in good public policy. Alaska's ranked choice voting system is good public policy. It gives a voice to the majority of Alaskans who are not at either end of the political extremes. I agree 100%. So let's hope this is actually one of the ones you don't want to pass. Sorry about that. Yeah, you don't. They want to be able to keep ranked choice voting. You want to keep that. Everybody should be pushing. And that's another thing I'll say, guys, with dual power. I would like to see if someone has the time to do it. We should be building some type of movement to implement ranked choice voting all across this country. That would make a big difference. And I do just want to show you the campaign finance numbers. Pay attention to how much money has been spent to support or oppose a ballot measure. This is important because oftentimes it goes in favor of the most money. So over 100,000 has been spent to support it so far, over 300,000 to oppose it. If this holds, most likely it will not pass, which will be good. You get to keep your ranked choice voting. So always pay attention to how the money is spent, because like I said before, follow the money, and then you'll get a lot of these answers to some of the questions that you may have.